So with Georgia having won the national championship in back-to-back years, there's an interesting talking point I've seen going around, both on social media, in articles, and even in the comment sections of some of my videos. And today, we're going to talk about it. And that's the question, is Alabama's run of dominance now over now that Georgia has arrived? Something we're going to talk about today. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill, I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, Y for yes, N for no. Do you believe Alabama's run of dominance is at its end? Let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like, comment down below. Those interactions may seem small, but they are massive to content creators such as myself, and we're on a push to 20,000 subscribers. I'd love nothing more than to have you a part of this unbelievable community. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And this is a really interesting conversation, one that has to be had with some nuance, and that's exactly what we're going to try and do here today. As always, I try and look at the issues objectively and look at it from all sides. But personally, I feel like it's way too early for us to say that the run of dominance had by Nick Saban and Alabama is at its end, and I have three primary reasons. First and foremost, I think there needs to be a really intricate balancing act that we do here, because we cannot disregard history and only look at the previous two seasons. And on the flip side of that, we cannot only look at the history and disregard what we've seen in the present. So there has got to be a balancing act. What I mean when I say this is, yes, Georgia won the national championship this year, and by all metrics, this was a down year for Alabama, which is insane in and of itself. For 99% of college football, 2 losses on a season plus a big bowl win, that's getting your coach a raise. That's a great season, but for the Alabama Crimson Tide, that was a failure. That's just the standard they have set. I don't feel like your run of dominance can be over if that's still the standard people are placing upon you. So that's one of the reasons. But even outside of that, we need to look at the sample size. Yes, Georgia has had an incredible run this year and the previous year. But even if we look at last year, Alabama and Georgia played each other twice, and they split those games. Once in the SEC championship game and once in the national championship game. Now, as always, I give deference to this point right here. Georgia fans, you won the national championship, which is the game that ultimately matters. But when Alabama was healthy, they were able to win in the SEC championship game. And even when Jamison Williams was healthy in that national championship, they were moving the ball, and it looked like it could have been a repeat of the SEC championship game. Now, in no way, shape, or form am I contending that had Jamison Williams not gone down, Alabama would have 100% won. It's the game of football. Anything can happen. But we do know that that Alabama offense was completely different with Jamison Williams. So that's an interesting point. But if we expand the sample size to more years, well, that record gets skewed more and more in Alabama's favor. So where does the balancing act occur? Because if we look at it, Kirby has one win over Nick Saban, and that occurred in the national championship, like I said, in the same year where he avenged a loss that he had just taken to Nick Saban. So no doubt that Kirby and Georgia are here. They are for sure a titan in college football. Arguing against that point is facetious, and it's a losing argument, and I'm not going to do that. Georgia is a titan, but I don't think that we can disregard Alabama as a titan as well. There are 2 titans in college football. There's a lot of really great teams, but right now, 2 teams are just standing above the rest, and that's Alabama and Georgia. And yes, once again, Alabama had a down year, so if you're sitting there saying, how can we say Alabama stands above the rest? Because of this balancing act I just talked about. We cannot look at a 1-year sample size, but just like that, we cannot disregard the present and only look at the past. There must be a balancing act occur. And whenever we employ this balancing act, I think it shows us that Alabama is still in their run of dominance, which brings me to the second point, and that's that Nick Saban is there. And Nick Saban being there has got to make Alabama fans feel very confident in their future, and deservedly so. Look at what he's given you. He is the GOAT for a reason, and with the existence of Nick Saban exists 2 truths. One, that he is going to attract high caliber coaches because they're going to want to work with him, and 2, that he is going to attract high caliber recruits because they are going to want to be developed by him, which in both of those situations is an absolute win for Alabama. The existence of the GOAT is going to give Alabama an edge. There's no doubt about that. But this gets me to my third reason, and it's a reason we talk about so much in college football, and I'm really surprised it hasn't been brought up more in support of the Alabama Crimson Tide, and that's recruiting. Because people keep pointing to the fact of how talented Georgia is, and there is no question the Georgia Bulldogs have amassed a ton of talent, but I see a lot of people saying, well, they're the favorites next year because look at how they've recruited. But I think if we're going to give Georgia that credence, we also have to give that credence to the Alabama Crimson Tide, because we can compare the way they've recruited, and it's fairly analogous. If we look at this class right here, the class of 2023, Alabama has the number 1 recruiting class in the nation to Georgia's number 2 recruiting class in the nation. If we look at 2022, Alabama had the number 2 recruiting class in the nation, Georgia had the number 3 recruiting class in the nation. If we look at 2021, Alabama had the number 1 recruiting class in the nation, Georgia had the number 4 recruiting class in the nation, and finally, if we look at the year in 2020, Alabama had the number 2 recruiting class in the nation, Georgia had the number 1 recruiting class in the nation. So both of these institutions are recruiting at an incredibly high level, and that's a major reason why I think it's so premature for us to say Alabama's going to fall off. The recruiting has not fell off. The recruits are still buying into the process, and if they're still buying into the process, I think we have got to at least let it play out, because they're the ones that are going to impart the difference, and they're still believing, which I think is a very powerful thing if you're an Alabama fan. So is Alabama's run of dominance done? No, I don't think it is. But are there 2 Titans in college football now? Yes, I think there are. Can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See you.